We'll talk about how to optimally reactivate. Very, very important. Of course, you know, it's some of the most cost-effective marketing you can do is you take an employee who's already there, just have them reactivate, right? Pretty simple. How do you do it? Turn the volume up.
This is Corey with Marin Dental Care. It's time for your cleaning. Just wanted to let you know there's great news. We're going to make it real easy on you. We got hours from 7 to 7, Monday through Friday, and we just added Saturdays and Sundays, which means you do not have to take off work to come get your teeth taken care of. Additionally, we got great new relationships with all insurances, and there is zero out of pocket for your cleaning exams and x-rays. So there is no reason we can't get you in, Steve, and no reason you shouldn't be here. We look forward to seeing you. Please call us back at your earliest convenience. Our number is 415-924-8575.
Pretty good. You could, another way to kind of handle, make sure the schedule's going to be full is to take anybody who's stuck into the middle of the day, middle of the week that you see ahead of time, who, particularly if they're working or students, and move them to the prime time because, you know, they're gonna just leave anyway. Let's talk about pre-appointment approaches. Yesterday's outdated pre-appointment approaches, forget about it. Do not say you're here on a Tuesday at 2 o'clock, so let's pre-appoint you 6 months later at 2 o'clock. You are kicking them out of the practice. You're absolutely kicking them out of the practice. You've got to continue to understand that if you have 200 new existing patients and they all must be pre-appointed, and 70 to 80% must be pre-appointed into prime time, because that's the national statistic. It ought to be right in that neighborhood, and about 20, 25% or so into the middle of the day, middle of the week, or that's the retired and unemployed. And that's an ideal schedule, but every time we look at these pre-appointment statistics, they come back 15, 20, 30% into prime time. And we know damn well that the probabilities are real, real low that you're taking an awful lot of people who are working or in school and putting them into times that there's no way they're going to come back. No way in the world. They got to be retained, and if they're going to be retained, you got to make it easy for them to get their butts back in the chair. Super easy. Let's set you up for your next cleaning appointment. I see you working 9 o'clock to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Let's not take a chance of you missing this next very important cleaning appointment just because you can't take off work or school. So what works better for you, weekends or evenings? If you don't properly pre-appoint them like that, or if you pre-appoint them like they used to do in the 90s and the 80s and so forth and so on, you may as well just kick them in the rear and kick them out of your practice. They're not gonna come back. You gotta view these patients that come in as new, let's say 100 new patients. Statistically, those guys have a value of roughly almost $90,000, right? So why wouldn't you treat it like a sack of diamonds? Why wouldn't you treat it like a stack of gold bars? Why wouldn't you look at it as if it was an irreplaceable stock certificate or dollar bills or $1,000 bill cash? Why wouldn't you look at it that way? Because that's what it is. Take care of those guys. Don't kick them out the door. Don't take a chance. Don't take a chance of putting someone who's a worker or a student into 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, even if your hygienist coerces them into saying that they can come back, they will not come back. They will not come back. And I've been doing this a long time, watching data. Justin was playing around with this for a while with his practices, where you just basically software locked it out. No one can be put in there at all. Nowhere. They overrode the software blocked the pre-appointment or new patient appointment, middle of the day, middle of the week. The more times they return, the more they trusted, the more they will refer you. And that's where you're gonna get your implants, your braces, your cosmetics, your TMJ, your sedation, all that other stuff is when you have a big old, fat old hygiene department. And we have a lot of our guys per office have close to 2,000 hygiene appointments per office per month. And they see a lot of great work coming out of that because they check a lot more people. It's just basic probabilities. Basic probabilities. The more you check, the more you find. So why not make sure you got a good hygiene department? Your always growing hygiene department is your most powerful marketing device. We ran a study a few years ago that patients retained in hygiene, they refer a lot more, 26.75 more new patients, all things being equal, year over year, practice to practice, because they added per 100 hygiene appointments that are added per month, caused new patient flow to go up. It also allowed new patient flow to go up because there were more openings that were put in there. Gotta have a lot of openings. Returning hygiene patients are far more valuable than new patients. A, because per visit they're more valuable, but if you multiply it by 10, it's a lot of money. The big case for a 10-year return on investment is basically this. One hygiene patient stays in the practice for 10 years. Well, it's like $830 now, so it'd be $8,300 over a 10-year period if they return just once a year. Big deal. Cumulatively, with a lot of patients in your practice, it's a lot of money. 1,000 of these guys coming back, $7.8 million over 8 million. It's really important to focus on this. It's an asset. You got the asset. Keep the asset. Don't take a chance. Pre-appointing these guys in the middle of the week is like kicking them in the butt, kicking them out of the practice. They will not come back. Why not develop or hire a hygiene retention czar? Someone who only focuses on making sure people are properly pre-appointed and reactivates for the practice and makes sure the schedule's filled. Pay them a ton of money on a filled schedule, particularly in the evenings and weekends when the patients are going to be the best. Pay them a lot of money. A lot of people have these, not as many as I'd like to have them. Paul Zollinger up in Minneapolis has one, and I don't know, man. I had breakfast with him the other day, and he's just pretty much by himself. One guy, he's the same age as me, works 3 days a week. I think he told me he did 380 last month by himself. Filled hygiene schedule. I think he sees 300, 400 hygiene appointments a month. It's a lot, but he gets a lot of braces, a lot of everything out of that. That's where you get your ortho. That's where you get your anything. That's where you get your referral out of a good hygiene schedule. Get somebody to do it. As a hint, I'm going to sound pretty nasty, it cannot be a hygienist. As another hint, it should be somebody separate from everybody else in the office. They have to be sort of not influenced by other people in the office, because a lot of people don't like people who fill up their schedule, particularly the last appointment of the day. A lot of people want those appointments to disappear. It's almost every week that I'll see 10 times where I'll see schedules. How come the last appointment of the day is not filled? We know they always fill if they're offered. The answer, of course, is they're not offered. The reason they're not offered is because people in the office say to the people on in the front desk, don't offer these appointments because I don't want to work that late. I want to go home early. And they don't fill. So it's wise to have an independent entity inside your office or outside of your office. That's all they do is fill those schedules. Sorry to talk so long. Profitability. You get a lot more profit if you have fewer low profit hours and more high profit hours. Makes sense, right? You increase your number of your high profit hours. You assist hygiene for 2 to 4 exams per hour per hygienist. Check a maximum number of people per hour during prime time. Limit prime time restorative, as Christy was just talking about. Maximize your sales per chair. Pretty simple. A lot of guys that you got Unified Smiles out there that you talk about reducing overhead. They cut your supply costs a lot. Pay your associates as independent contractors. Our accountant, who's one of the best accountants around, he says basically it's okay to pay them as independent contractors. I can't give advice as a CPA, but that's what he says, so what the hell. Think about using treatment 24/7. Look and see if your guys are optimally presenting and your work is being optimally accepted. And there's this insurance maximization guys that are out there now, 5 Lakes. By the way, I get nothing from these guys. I'm just telling you what is really helping our guys. If you've got a bunch of people that are billing insurance, it may be more efficient to use eAssist out there, which is a third-party entity out of Salt Lake. It's a client of ours and a friend of ours for years who has that company. And you try to get 200 hygiene exams per dentist and not that much more because they become inefficient past 200. We've said this 100 times. Weekend and evening patients are far more profitable. They have far better insurance, higher maximums, less time to hassle you, more money to pay copays and lower copays. So why not the hell just have a lot more people come in on weekends and evenings? Makes sense not to. Assisting hygiene, you all know how to do this, I think. Pretty simple because you're basically taking a small number of staff and you're leveraging it to the optimal level. You have the assistant who would be helping the doctor during restorative times, middle of the day, middle of the week, shifts to help the hygienist during the prime time period. You don't add staff, you just add a ton of patients. I mean, this is pretty obvious, but I got to make sure I tell you that you're gonna, whenever you add hygiene and doctors and relevant team members, you're gonna see a short, as Ryan was just talking about, you're gonna see a short-term reduction in profit, but it's only short-term. It'll come back really quickly, but without investing in these additions of hygienists and doctors and related team members, you really can't grow. So you have to make this investment. You have to assume there's going to be a short-term dip in profits, but it'll be higher profit over the long run. You can reinvest into very soon after. It'll be a dip in profit, but it'll be at a higher level. But it's going to happen. It's the only way to do it. Huh? I would love to. This one here, like that? I thought all you guys knew this stuff. You know how that works, right? I studied this for a lot of years before I went forward with it. I asked about 100 hygienists how to do assisted hygiene. They were telling me it was unethical to do this, and the patient experience was going to be so horrible and so forth and so on. But if you take a look at the retention levels and acceptance levels of practices that have assisted hygiene, all that happens is they have more patients, so they have more acceptance. The patients don't even know who the hell the hygienist is. They don't know their name. So, you have a great hygienist and a great assistant hover over the patients. They're nice. They get out of there pretty quickly. They don't think it's a clinic or a mill or anything like that. They think that it's great because these great, nice people got me out of there real quick and did a real good job. The doctor and everybody else likes it because they check more people during prime time, find more work. Your probabilities of success and huge profitability are increased. Hope that makes sense to you. Was that enough on there? And this is something that, we talked a little bit about the experimental practices we're working with, and a lot of you guys are thinking about doing this, where you basically have walk-in cleanings, right? No barrier, no points of abrasion for the cleanings. You think, oh my God, I got to pay the hygienist to sit around all day. Well, at $830 probability per hygiene check, you can have them sitting around all day, and they see one patient, and it's profitable. So what the hell? Who cares? You're not going to see. If they have Saturdays, you're not going to have them sitting around all day. They're going to be busy. And as Ryan was talking about, and a lot of guys we talk with about, and we have to clean up after these problems a lot over the years. Please don't add operatories, office space, or additional offices before your current chairs are filled about at least 70 or 80 hours a week. Get yourself up to at least about $800,000, $700,000 per chair per year before adding more offices. Because it's just, why spend, we have single offices, a lot of single offices that are approaching $1 million per chair per year that are 25 ops, 12 ops, things like that. Why not just fill them up first before adding more offices? Your overhead is fixed, and you just add more return on overhead investment by having more sales per chair, rather than adding more chairs, which doesn't really necessarily add more sales. And remember, keeping these guys in hygiene for 10 years gives you a 10-year ROI. Well, how much did you make on that marketing, John? Well, it's a 10-year deal. Keep them in the practice 10 years. Work less and get out of the chair while earning more. Let's talk about practicing from the Bahamas. You deserve to practice from the Bahamas. And many of you, thank God, aren't killing yourselves like you used to, and you're pretty much out of the chair. And nothing makes me happier. Nothing makes me happier when I hear your boat is parked in Chicago and you're going to go there tonight, tomorrow, and hang out on your boat. And that's what they're going to do. Practice will keep humming along. Nothing makes me happier to be able to spend time with you while you're on vacation and have you make all this money while you're gone. Thinking about selling your practice? I mean, I can understand why some of you guys might, but I think you ought to think again. There's a lot of inflation that's happened over the last 20, 30 years, and a lot of you guys, most of you guys are going to live at least 20, 30 more years. Think of the cost, how things have gone up. I mean, think of the cost of a 911 Porsche, for instance. I think that oh, geez, what do those things cost? They cost $5,900 in 1960s, right? You're lucky to find one now for less than $100,000. And it's going to go up a lot more real quick because they had a lot, their costs went up a whole lot. Gas is like crazy these days. It's nuts. All you guys with your Corvettes used to be $4,300, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. A lot more now. Look at this. This is in my neighborhood. That's pretty good, huh? $5 a gallon, $5.20 a gallon for gas. Get used to it. It's going to get more expensive. Rich guy stuff is going to get a lot more expensive real quick. Real quick. Trust me. So you get a bunch of money for your practice, you sell it. And I live in a town where there's a bunch of guys that sold their businesses for what they thought was a bunch of money, right? They live in $8 million houses, let's say. They have, you can tell because they always bought these cars. They bought like Mercedes diesels or Lexuses, right? And they're like 20, 25-year-old cars. They drive them around, but they never have any money to get any new cars. They have specials at the restaurants for between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock, and they get like 30% off or something like that. They all hummer into that. They all got fixed incomes or declining incomes because when things get more expensive, your fixed income isn't fixed no more. It's declining. So the gym where I go to, the lady who runs the gym used to say to me, she says, she's so upset. She's so upset at these guys that come in there, have gym memberships. She says, but all they ever do is they shower because they don't want to run the hot water in their house. It costs a lot of money. And so to me, that's being in prison. It's like being in prison. So think about it. Think about it before selling your practice. This is actually a photo of Dr. Mascarin in the Bahamas, who actually he just closed off his dental license reading the Bahamas book. He just got rid of his Royal College thing, just threw it out, told him to screw off. He doesn't touch anybody anymore. How many doctors you got working for you now? Steve, how many doctors you got for you now? 20? There's a lot of guys. So please consider capital gains taxes. Really important. Many guys have sold their businesses and don't understand this. And my best accountant in the world, who's Sean's brother-in-law, he can't get you out of capital gains taxes. And it's what, 30%, 40% or something like that? Boom, you can't do nothing about it. So I got $1 million. No, you didn't. You got $640,000. And will this amount last you for the next 30 years? Please consider your health and sanity. As you approach around 200 hygiene patients per month, it's time. If you wait too long, it's not good, because if you're checking too many patients, you're going to start spinning out of control. You work too hard, you can't think straight. You really got to start building into this bit where you add hygiene, add associates. As I said before, watch out for, as I said before, you basically need around 3 associates to make up for your income. But if you have 6, you'll double your income or more. So why not get 6? It's all very easy. Add hygiene, that's mostly prime time, market to fill it, have doctors check it. You get 70% of the production. Feliz Navidad. Pretty simple, huh? Just keep doing it. Watch out for partnerships, they're not good. Get a great culture in your office. Everybody's got to be incentivized, as Christy and Ryan were just talking about. Otherwise, particularly if you're going to be away a lot, you'll get screwed if you don't incentivize your staff. We want you to have a great life, be our friend and client for decades, but we don't want you to be dying, and we don't like you to be burning out in the chair. We want you to be happy, and nothing makes me happier than have you be able to do things that you love to do. Go off to Italy. Go off to take your boat to Italy. But you got to be really good at hiring and optimizing associate doctors, and it's not that hard. I'll go into it in detail. The process of hiring, the associate hiring process now is a lot like what I showed you guys with hygiene. You'll try Indeed ads, let's say with $20,000 signing bonuses, and maybe suggesting $250,000 a year. If the Indeed ad doesn't work after a couple of days, you raise the dollar amount right away. Like not a week, a couple of days. You raise the dollar amount right away. That doesn't work, you raise it again. That doesn't work, you raise it again. Then you go to a certain point, and you go, well, people aren't looking on Indeed, And then you throw these postcards out, which everybody who has a license in every state, we've got their home address. We send these things to their home, and we get pretty aggressive with them sometimes, but we get doctors. We get a lot of doctors. Joe's out there, he does it. That's all he does, is this. We're getting doctors and hygienists for everybody, because all of our practices need doctors and hygienists. They all need, we fill up the hygiene, they need more. That's why they're growing. So this is actually working. I don't know if the, how do I say this? I don't know if the market's going to be a little bit easier as time goes on, and the government supplements of financial supplements are going to be less. I really don't know what's going on, but it's pretty, not tough right now, but you do have to do things that you don't think you'd have to do in order to get doctors. Managed properly, your worst associate can be your best. I want to go through the steps real quick. A practice must add 2 primetime hygiene hours per added associate hour. And it makes sense, right? They got to have exams, and you don't get the exams unless they come through hygiene, so you got to have ample hygienists added on top of what you had before in order to flow exams for that added associate. Otherwise, you'll cannibalize one another. Please understand that, because we did postmortems on about 300 failed associateships, and everyone had one thing in common, and that is they didn't add enough hygiene or any hygiene to add to the associate doctors. So let's say, for instance, you had a great old normal American practice where they have 200 hygiene appointments for one doctor, and they're doing about $150 a month, let's say. The guy thinks he's doing really good. So he says, let's bring on an associate. So that associate starts checking into that 200 new and returning hygiene appointments a month, right? So the original doctor, his production starts to drop because he's checking, 30%, 40%, 50% fewer hygiene checks. And he goes, what's going on here? I'm not making any money. And then the other ones that the other doctor does, he maybe doesn't do as good a job, and you got to pay the guy 30%. He starts going, whoa, wait a minute, this is no good. And then the associate doctor goes, hey, I'm not making any money at this place. And before you know it, the associate's out the door. So you really have to front load it with a lot of hygiene. It's just like starting a scratch practice. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. You gotta have perfect secret shoppers. You gotta pay the associate immediately upon acceptance. Otherwise, particularly if they're working evening or weekend hours, because otherwise if they don't see an immediate return on their investment of working this weekend hours, their family's gonna give them a hard time. They're not gonna be happy. So you gotta see immediate payback on that. Associates that worked at the mills for first 3 years out of school are probably the best, but no one's done any huge studies on it. Everybody's moldable. Always have a 1 or 2 week working interview. Dr. Martineau suggested having like a 2-month interview. I kind of think he's probably closer to being right. I really admire what he's done with his guys. Always earn lower money if they, you have an associate who's checking midday, midweek hygiene, they're always going to not earn that much money. But if you have them checking weekend and evenings, they're going to statistically earn about 3 times as much money, and you're going to have a happier associate, and you're going to be happier with the 70% that you retain. You can't let the senior doctor cherry pick away big cases. It upsets the associates. Between 1982 or 83 and about 2001 or so, I opened up probably 400 practices for guys that were former associates of guys. And they inadvertently gave me a tutorial on what not to do if you're an owner doctor, because they were always griping about the guy who they quit in order to open up the scratch office. Probably the biggest one they complained about was the fact that the senior doctor, the owner doctor, cherry-picked away a lot of big cases. If the hygiene pre-appointment process is flawed, inherently, the number of patients that you're going to have in your practice is going to be stagnant, and you're going to flatline, and so will the associate, and they're not going to be very happy. I think that, and a lot of you guys are really good at this, having the senior doctor open up and mentor from the heart, tell the truth, what you think, what you say, what you do, about case by case by case. Similar to what I said before about having the new associate be the assistant for the doctor too, so you can see how the doctor approaches things, what the senior doctor says to the patient. Tell the truth. Tell them what really, it's an investment in the practice to have the senior doctor, owner doctor, talk about this and tell them what to do. You screw up insurance, nothing works. You're really, really bad. We have statistics on this, but 1 or 2 day a week associates usually swing for the fences and upset patients. You probably gotta limit their case presentations to the patient's insurance maxes unless the patient perceived an issue coming in. You gotta ensure, this is important, staff, all the team, all the hygienists, everybody else basically pre-sells the associate. You're gonna love this guy, he's great, he's a fantastic dentist, you can trust him, before they walk in the operatory to increase the likelihood that the patient does well. If acceptance is low, give the associate the freedom to pay the copay for the patient. This is done pretty commonly. If the patient would have walked out the door because of a $300 copay and the insurance portion to the practice is $500, is door number one's going to be $0. Door number two is you take the $500, you let the associate do it for $500, and you become a hero to the patient because you care more about, in the patient's mind, you care more about the welfare of the public than you care about the money. So you paid the copay for the guy. Alarmingly, we found a couple of cases where if the associate doctor is not, this is unbelievable, but if the associate doctor was not paid a percentage of the exam, they don't do exams, which is crazy, but they wonder why their income's low. And they can't connect the dots and figure out that by doing exams is where they find the work. It's a matter of $15 usually to the associate, but they didn't get it. So I've seen practices where you pay them. They weren't paying the percentage of the exam to the patient, and then all of a sudden they pay it, and instead of checking half the patients, they check all the patients, and what do you know? The associate's income doubles. It's unbelievable. This is true. This is stuff we see over the years. Be careful, because staff will quietly guide better patients to the senior doctor for bigger bonuses. This makes sense, right? But that happens a lot. So then it sort of chokes off the productive opportunities of the new associates. So be kind of careful with that. It's wise to somehow or other personality test and certainly background check the associate. Janitor, do you hear? Isn't it wise to background check associates before hiring them? Janet? Isn't it wise to background check associates before hiring them? Yeah, most lawyer contracts offend the doctor and negatively taint the relationship. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because you get some kid who's coming out of school and some fancy doctor throws this big old fat contract in their lap, and they go, "What the heck's this?" And take it to their father. Father takes it to the law firm. "This place your son's going to work is going to be ripping him off. This is crazy." There's a direct relationship, and I'll show you in a second with a study we did, between long contracts, lawyer contracts, and doctors not staying very long and not being very productive. Don't worry about them stealing your patients and opening up down the street. If you do, we'll just suck all the patients out of their former associate's practice like a vacuum cleaner, and they'll be done. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. They won't know half of what you know. We'll take care of it. Here's some of the data. This is the data that we ran on a couple hundred offices, where we found that if you work, the associate that works 30 or 32 or 33 hours a week does a lot more than ones that work fewer hours or more hours. This is where you have the production per exam of a practice where the associate contract was written by a lawyer. They do about 30% less than the ones where it's just a nice agreement between the owner doctor and the associate. They pay them immediately, and as on acceptance, just like hygienists must be paid by the patient. This talks about whether you pay them based on production or collections. The ones paid immediately upon treatment acceptance do about 30% more than the ones that don't, probably because they check more prime time hygiene. We're going to talk a little bit more about, I'll just move ahead to this stuff. Is Nate here? You guys see Nate? There's Nate back. See Nate back there? What we're going to have here is Nate and I and a bunch of the experts out of our company. We're taken together. I don't know if there's any room left in it or not, but we're taking a number of people who are our clients in to probably go out to my beach house. We're going to sit around with all the stats and so forth, and we're basically going to dissect a small number of practices bit by bit, step by step, and we're going to convert them into multi-million-dollar growth practices. In other words, micromanage these practices. And Nate, how many more openings are there left? Do you have any idea? 4 or 5. I think we're going to have it in October, midweek of October. So if you're interested in being part of that, talk with Dr. Schott back there. Dr. Schott, by the way, grew his practice from almost nothing to $20 million a year, and he stopped working years before he sold it. Knows exactly what he's doing, had $1 million per chair per year office. He's an absolute expert, one of the nicest guys in the world. Go talk with him in the back. It's a great thing to consider. I'm gonna scoot ahead here. Okay, here we go. This is interesting. What's the insurance industry's long-term game plan? What do you think those guys are up to? It's kind of interesting. I hope you'll enjoy this. At some point, you will receive an offer from what appears to be a DSO, VC, or other dental office buying group. What's your best option? The DSOs, VCs are really ultimately getting, usually, not in Canada, but in the United States, they're usually getting their money from the insurance industry. In other words, the insurance industry is using their money and their influence to manage practices in ways that benefit them. And they don't come up to you and say, hi. Well, occasionally they do, but they usually don't come to you and say, hi, I'm from Delta or whatever. I want to buy your practice. It comes in the form of this dental buying group or this DSO or whatever. It's usually the huge, ridiculous profits that the insurance industry makes. They fund the VCs and the hedge funds, and then those guys fund the dental practice buying groups, and then those guys will buy the practices. And it's very slow, very secretly, they methodically take these steps, and they buy a lot of them. And they influence the practices a lot. Once they buy them, they reduce the hours to 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Why would they do that? Because the people who are insured all work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, so it makes it really difficult for them to get in the door. So they reduce access on a large scale locally, which thereby reduces insurance billing. They like that. They don't like to send money to you because it means money they don't get to keep. And I'll go through this in detail in a little bit. They always reduce the number of hygienists. They, in some cases, they incentivize underproduction by doctors. They aggressively charge copays, and they say there's all sorts of statutes and stuff like that, so forth, that say you're breaking the law by not charging copays. So they aggressively charge copays to reduce utilization. It will reduce utilization and does reduce utilization. They radically increase the hygienists they keep. They pay them on a dollar percentage of production, and they radically increase soft tissue management diagnosis and production because they know that it's at this certain point it's legally justified to do this, but it's also a legal way to drive patients out of the practice, to actually damage the reputation of dentistry, which reduces flows into practices, which reduces insurance billing, right? Increasing their profits. They market to attract non-insured services like ortho implants, welfare, Medicaid, stuff like that. You'll see this. And they reduce new and returning patient phone access. In other words, they don't answer the phone very much because they don't want anybody in there. They want to shut down. They want to almost create a heat sink for dentistry in that area, reducing utilization. I don't know if you know this or not, but the medical dental insurance industry became, and also the life insurance and all the other type of insurance became exempt from the 1890 Sherman Antitrust Act by the McCarran-Ferguson Act of 1945. What's the name of the little airport they have over here in Las Vegas? McCarran, yeah, it's Senator McCarran from this lovely Silver State, right? He was a pretty powerful guy, had a lot of connections. It was done in 1945. Think about it. And that act, the other guy, Ferguson, was from Michigan. That act basically allowed all the insurances to legally become one company. You think of it as good old Delta, good old Cigna, good old Blue Cross. It's not good old this or that. It's one big old huge company. Probably the biggest company in the world by far. But there's no auditing. You can't access them. Can't see what the hell the deal is. It looks like they do about $3 trillion in just medical dental in the United States. It's a big company. It's a big company. They're all interconnected. They can share information. They probably, you can't dig into them and start dissecting them because there's no way. They're protected like crazy. If it's $3 trillion, it's bigger than the UK GDP. It's a little bit smaller than German GDP and a little bit bigger than the California GDP. Big business. This is just smoke screens, but basically they tell you that Delta makes $2 billion. They don't. They make a lot more than that. That might be what they say is their net. I doubt it. And they pay their CEO $14 million. It's just smoke screen. The CEO is just a placeholder. He's just a puppet. The real guys you never know. You never see. You never know who they are. You can't find out who they are. These guys will pay off all potential adversaries and ensure practices are managed to reduce utilization and increase insurance industry profits. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. This is a letter. I get a lot of these. This is the most recent one to buy my company. It came from a broker who specifically identified Delta as being who they were wanting to have buy my business for a lot of money. It's not monkey business here. This is the truth, like everything else I'm telling you. It's the truth. And the guy, when he was trying to buy our business, was bragging about all the consultants that he was also buying at the same time. So guess what those consultants did, who I knew, he mentioned like 5 or 6 names. I watch all 5, 6 of these guys. Guess what they do now? Soft tissue management is a profit center. Come to my new seminar. All of a sudden. Why would they do that? Damages the reputation of dentistry and it drives patients out of the practice. They're not stupid. So be careful who you listen to. A lot of these guys are quietly owned or controlled by the insurance industry. The, what's it called? Dental Intel is owned by those guys pretty openly. Therefore, what's it called? The Local Med is also owned by those guys then. That's why we want you to consider going out there to those TrueLark guys who've got a no obstruction inflow, a digital online scheduling platform that's really good. Translate from that to this. So is Australia a test market for what's next in the United States? All of a sudden one day in Australia, a bunch of private practices came up with this name here, which is Bupa. Bupa is like the Delta, it probably is Delta of Australia. All of a sudden there's like 300 offices that are just basically named by the name of the insurance companies. Any of you guys who ever been in Arizona for a long time, remember when there used to be Cigna Dental down there? Anybody remember that? Yeah, one day some lawyers got after them or something, and the name just changed to Western. Boom, just like that. So they were doing it, and somebody went after them somehow and stopped it. This is almost 40 years ago, I think, 35 years ago. Some of you guys might remember. But that's what they're doing in Australia. The insurance companies are branded. And the fun part about the Australia thing is that if they are a preferred provider, the preferred providers are only at their offices they own. So if you want to get a better deal, you can only go into this office. So what's the best path for private dentists in the United States? There's a huge chasm between what practices are currently offering and what the public wants. In 2021, the patients are more likely not to exactly love their dental office. No practice in the world is even coming close to giving the customer what they really want. But some of you guys, thank God, are just doing really well. And just thanks so much for doing this stuff. It makes me extraordinarily happy. Really a thrill. The closer you come to giving the customer what they want, the better the practice does. And there really are no limits, as most of you guys have figured out by now. But the field's still open to do even more. The field's still open to do some things that have never been done before and do some really cool things that are just going to blow the socks off of everybody in the marketplace. Now, it's not really well accepted for me to say what I'm going to say, but if a practice does what I'm talking about here, there's not going to be any other practices around. It's going to take all the patients. It's going to take all the patients. There'll be no defenders left. All practices are vulnerable. There's a pretty big void to dominate your area, and you can dominate it. It's just taking what you do and making it a little bit better than it currently is, even as well as so many of you guys are currently doing. Remember how Kmart was wiped out by Walmart? Same sort of deal, but I'm talking way better than Kmart, way better than Walmart. Just give customers what they want. So a new mega practice that extends their hours from 6 a.m. to 9:30 p.m., 7 days a week. There might be an experiment that just suggests that they open at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon and close at 9:30 at night. That might be more profitable because those middle of the day, middle of the week hours are just worthless. Walk in for cleanings, no appointments, no wait, no copay for preventative and most restorative if we can legally do it. Very limited forms or paperwork. The concierge that'll fill it out for them. Apply Four Seasons level customer service protocols. Hire people not from dental world, but hire them from Four Seasons. Hire them from great restaurants, things like that. Like Steve did. Steve did a great job of hiring people from restaurants and things like that. Very, very wise. Facial recognition, which will basically you'll be able to recognize who the patient is. You'll have bioinformation on them. Big screens in the reception rooms, big screens in the break rooms where you can see who the patients are, what their hobbies are, what type of pets they have, where they vacation, and little notes below the patient so you can call the patient by name. And boy, how did you like that trip to Lodi or wherever they went? Very conservative, restorative, and extremely conservative perio case presentation. No pre-authorization monkey business. Pre-appoint 100% of patients only into weekends and evenings. Only into weekends and evenings. Probably 10 to 20 ops. And the one I'm going to open up will be like 12 ops because that's the only room I want to have. It'll become a volume game. It's just a volume game. It's processing patients. Oh, what am I doing here? I just bought this building. It's not through escrow yet for our company, but it's about 14,000 square feet. We're going to put about 5,000 square feet or 4,000 square feet, 12 ops down below. We have 200,000, 300,000 cars a day drive by this. It's on the way north out of San Francisco, just over the Golden Gate Bridge. And we'll just put a site sign there for the practice. If we want to say, walk in for your cleanings, $0 or whatever, we'll do it. Walk in, put a bunch of direct mail out. It's a huge, huge deal. And the thing that it's been frustrating to me is I'm so I'm so focused on the opportunities of making sure practices add enough hygiene to recapture the investment that they made, initial investment they made in new patients to recapture them 6 months later, which is my biggest deal I got to do now, that I don't have the energy or the bandwidth to focus on customer service, and it wouldn't matter anyway if the practice doesn't have sufficient appointments. So if a practice does have sufficient appointments, I would love to move into this customer service protocols that we've already built. We already have them. We set it up on the basis of what Ritz-Carlton used to do in Atlanta and what Four Seasons is doing around the world. Extraordinarily high levels of customer service. I was lucky enough the other day to stay in one of the best customer service hotels in the world in Paris at the Four Seasons, and these guys really do extraordinarily good job. They just exceed all expectations, walk you to wherever you want to go, whatever you want. They just take care of you like crazy. That methodology, just applied to a dental office, has never been done. But if you marry that with good basic fundamental protocols of allowing new patients to get in when they need to get in and get back when they need to get back, the world is yours. And they don't pay any more, so what the hell? You're gonna win. You're gonna rule the world. You'll absolutely rule the world. So unfortunately, I got a feeling it's gonna have to be me who sets the model up for this, because you guys don't want to do nothing unless it's been done before. So I'm gonna do it, and you guys I'll give you the data and you can copy it. Feliz Navidad. You just can't, you keep thinking about, everybody thinks, well, we'll have all these nice customer service things, like we'll have coffee makers and we'll say my pleasure and crap like that and think that'll do it. But if you got no more appointments, you ain't gonna grow. So what's the point? You can say, oh, my pleasure all day long. My pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure. It ain't gonna help you. It ain't gonna help you. Right, Sean? But what happens, this is what'll happen. This is my biggest fear. We already know this will work really well because we've already tested all the components independently. We've opened up all these scratch offices and we know how they work, blah, 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 blah. But what happens if $4 to $5 million a month insurance checks are being sent to one location? All the alarms on your girlfriends at Delta, their computers are gonna go flash, their computers are gonna start smoking and shit. They're gonna go, who's this? What the hell is this? They never saw that before. They're not gonna be very happy. So there's only one solution, which is develop an IDP system, which is individual dental plan system, or to actually develop our own insurance company and go back to what Delta was originally in Michigan, which Corey's dad's partner was one of the guys that set up, going back into the 50s, which is basically a dental-owned insurance company where the profits went to the dentist and the money went back to the dentist. So, all right, keeping your patients in the practice cumulatively. As hygiene goes, so goes new and returning patient flows and production. It's a backbone of your practice. While a lot better recently, hygiene is still one of the most dreadfully mismanaged components of any Western business. You guys are getting pretty good. But, oh man, you can't believe the stuff we see. We commonly see practices lose 100% of their new patient flows from the prior 5 years. They lose 100% of them year over year. 100% lost. And they don't realize it because they don't do the stats right, or they listen to their hygienist says, oh, everybody comes back. But they couldn't come back if you have the same number of hygienists 5 years in a row, and you got 1,000 new patients a year, each year. How is it possible they could have come back? Do the simple math. It's still a bloodbath, unfortunately. It's a horrible, horrible bloodbath of lost patients, and everybody could do a better job, and that's my mission in life, is to get you guys to do a better job of retaining your patients cumulatively as an annuity over the decades, and watch you guys get your boats, get your airplanes, and get your new Ferraris and all this other stuff, and that's what I want to have happen, and not have to work. The only way you can do it is retain your patients and hygiene. It's a blood. You want to see that slide again? Okay, it's a bloodbath. I want to make sure you saw that. See, the scariest part is you gotta. I'm trying to think of a polite way to say this. You gotta stick money out on the table as a risk before you basically get return on that money you put out on the table. But if you don't put the money out on the table in the form of hiring hygienists and doctors and making sure the operatories are in good shape and so forth, you cannot get that return on investment. You can't get patients in there or back through unless you've spent the money to have the appointments ahead of time. So you must proactively add these appointments. So it's just like a scratch office. How much do you want to have as your first month? You want to do 200,000 first month? Okay, let's get you 350 hygiene appointments. You got to get yourself 2.5 hygienists who are assisted, and then 1.5 doctors. You got to front load those guys. You got to make the investment in those guys. You market, we'll fill it. I mean, if there's impediments anywhere, it won't fill as quick. But in most cases, yeah, it'll fill. Go big or go home. Your hygiene department, patient numbers, and production must increase every month. If it's not, you got to go, well, what's up with my hygiene retention system? This is the simple mathematical model, which, if you take a look at it, it seems so simple, but this is sitting in front of us for 20 years. We only figured this out 20 years ago. It's just, if you get 50 new patients in January, they damn well ought to be coming back in June, and then January the next year, and then June the next year after that. But at the same time, you're getting another 50 new patients. So if the hygiene department isn't increasing in terms of its ability to process patients in accord with the inherent demand, it's not possible for them to come back. Now, many people tell us, well, John, the reason they don't come back is because, we had a bad insurance person 6 months ago, or we had the COVID 6 months ago, or all these other excuses, or the doctor was aggressive 6 months ago, or the hygienist was heavy-handed 6 months ago, or some other excuse. But how do you know that if there's no appointments for them to come back to anyway? How do you know that that was the cause of the patient not coming back if there was no appointments for them to come back into anyway? Are you following what I'm saying? There was no place they could have come back whether they had a heavy-handed hygienist or not. There's no appointments. So you only know that the cause was the doctor or the COVID or whatever excuse you want to get if there's appointments that are sitting there and don't fill. But it was impossible for these appointments to fill because there's no appointments. Nothing was available. No hygiene is added. Has to commonly, cumulatively, always add hygiene. A lot of practices have these guys or gals. Hygiene hogs. Do you like that, Sean? Hygiene hogs. They stay in your practice. They refer to all the people they were going to refer. And maybe they don't got a lot more work. Who knows what the deal is? But you don't got the new patients who seemingly will refer a lot more early on as their first time back, second time back, third time back. If it's the 20th time back, they already referred, they're going to refer, and they hog up all the slots that would have allowed the wealthy people to get in who needed big cases and things like that. So you have to expand the capacities always in hygiene to allow for these guys. A lot of people go, wait a minute, John, I'm going to wait until I'm completely full in hygiene before I add more. Well, we've never seen a practice that was completely full in hygiene. Maybe you have. I've never seen anybody. It's usually, some of these guys wait, well, it's 90% full. We're going to, 90% full, and you didn't add another hygienist, but you got 4,000 new patients over the last 2 years. Where the hell you put them? So the better thing to do is to know that you're going to have a fill rate that's a certain level. Let's call it, in this example, it's 75%. But if it's 75% of $100,000, it's going to be $75,000. If it's 75% of $1 million, it's going to be $750,000. But you have to add the capacity. It's never going to be perfect. I mean, Todd, I don't know if Todd's here or not, but if Todd has a deal in his practices, if it's 50% full, 60% full, something like that, he's just automatically just hires another one. Just hires them. It's the best investment you can make in business. Just hire another one, hire another one, hire another one. And if you have to pay more money for it, pay more money for it because, like I say, they pay for themselves with one patient. So they're going to see sometimes 14 patients a day. So just hire them. Simple. And this is kind of a simple way to look at it. But if you have 200 long-term existing hygiene patients, they should stay, right? But you gotta, in order to if you get 50 new patients the first month, they got to come back 6 months later, but you're also going to get another 50 new patients. And this is a fairly common deal. But if you don't add those appointment availables, in this case, adding 100 hygiene appointments relative to what they had 6 months prior, there's no way that the flow of new patients can be optimized, nor can the flow of returning patients be optimized. I hope you're understanding it's kind of complex. And I sound like I'm one of these guys that's really smart on this stuff, but some of this stuff took like 25 years to figure out. So if you're stuck on this ever too, please ask questions because it's really simple, but it's obvious, but it takes forever to figure out. So it's $830 now per hygiene check. We ran the numbers the other day. And I showed this to you earlier. You add hygiene, you grow. Add hygiene, you grow. This is just some guys that grew. Add hygiene, you grow. Add hygiene, you grow. More checks. This is what your hygiene department looked like before this meeting. Like a hamster wheel going nowhere. Now you're going to have massively added hygiene. It's going to be growing. You're going to be getting out of the chair. You're going to be buying new Ferraris, new boats, whatever you want to get, you're going to get. And you're going to get out of the chair. So 206 million Americans are obligated 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. About 56 million are in elementary through high school students, 19.9 million are in college, and 130 million or so are unemployed. Now I know that it's fun to point exceptions at the people, like these guys get to work from home, or those guys, well, they can take off on Fridays. But we got to look at the probabilities. We got to look at the probabilities. This is statistical probabilities. These guys are working 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Yes, you can cite exceptions. But by and large, the masses of Americans, this is what happens. Yes, those college students like me, so I could go skiing. I only went to classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I went to Tahoe and skied on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Yes, but that's the exception. But by and large, they're obligated. That's what's going on. Embrace this, please. Don't fight it. There's nothing you can do about it. Nothing I can do about it. In many nations, for instance, Egypt, they laugh at you if you want to have a meeting like, during the evening because that's the only time they're open. Indonesia, they only open on weekends. Only open on weekends because the people who have to work and cannot even begin to think about taking off work to go to a dentist for any reason because they lose money that's a lot more dear to them than apparently it's dear to most Americans. These guys will not even begin to think about taking off work to doing something for their personal health. They can't. It's not in their economy. Currently, too many practices are suicidally contracting their hygiene schedules. This ensures practice decline. It ensures practice decline. You contract hygiene because of COVID or some other excuse, you will decline. There's no way you won't decline. So in order to go, you must allow growth by proactively adding new and returning hygiene, disproportionately unlock prime time new and returning patient flows. They just won't take off work, but they will take off for restorative care found during the cleanings. Thank goodness you made it here on time. We need to get you back here right away to get this tooth taken care of. Oh man, be careful not to chew on that side. Watch out for hot and cold. We got to get this taken care of right away. Judy, when's the soonest we can get Mr. Jones back to this procedure? Perfect, Tuesday at 2 o'clock, it is. You get a deposit. The statistics we have suggest that 100% of the people will come back if you get your deposit from the patient. And you tell them their head's gonna fall off, they're gonna die, they're gonna bleed to death. It's a very strict rule. Get these guys pre-appointed into 80% into prime time. This policy forces and practices to proactively add hygiene appointments equal to current month new patient flows 6 months later. Staff don't like this. No one likes this. Judy wants to go home, goes to happy hour or whatever they want to do. I don't know what they want to do, but they don't like working late. You got to pay them more money. You got to watch it. Staff will sabotage this. Not you, of course, but this is over the decades. We see day after day, 5 times a day, staff sabotage the evenings. Oh, they don't want evenings around here, John. No. Well, how come all the other 5 practices I saw today, it's packed till 9 o'clock at night, and your practice is empty at 6 o'clock, and you're supposed to be seeing patients at 7. Do birds fly differently here? They don't like me when I ask that question. But I don't really care, because my job's not to be a popularity contest, boy. I want your guys to do good, and they're not going to do good if you exit out and block out the best patients who are coming in your practice. Sorry about that. So incentivize. People need to make more money for doing things that they didn't really think they ought to be doing in the first place. No one thought they would have to work late being a dentist, but you got to work late in this changed economy, this changed world. But some people need to, practice is going to make more money, so the team and so forth needs to make money in proportion to their inconvenience for working a little later. Added hygiene is the best investment in the Western business world. It's phenomenal. Added Saturday hygiene. We have a great rep. In fact, we must have a pretty good business because he just retired and moved to Australia. But the fun thing he used to do in Los Angeles, he had the Los Angeles territory. He was a funny guy. And he used to say to these guys, hey man, what's your favorite car? Oh, I like those Camaros, John, they're really good. So he like, okay, I bet you a Camaro, brand new Camaro. You add 100 hygiene appointments per month on Saturdays. And you have a reasonably clean phone lines, phone handling, and normal marketing. And if you don't grow by $500,000, I'll buy you a Camaro. It would bet him all day long. He'd bet on this. And guess how many times he got them their new cars, whatever they were? Never, because it always fills, always fills, always fills. Proactively, regularly, fluidly adding hygiene is the key to practice growth. My buddy Jack, who unfortunately passed away, says we don't consider them to be patients unless they come back 3 times. And, probably the case. We're just selling cleanings. Let me just scoot ahead here. We saw that. So the golden rule of dental practice growth is the more new and returning patients doctor checks in hygiene, the more restorative will be diagnosed. This is just the obvious stuff. Our practices grew by $56,000 a month per 100 hygiene appointments added per month. It's probably a little bit more than that now, but it's just extraordinarily good investment. It's extraordinarily good investment. I'll just show you a bunch of these. So we have hundreds of these. The left column is added hygiene appointments. In year one. The second column is production increases, and third column, the third line is new patient increases. So every time you add about 100 hygiene appointments, your production grows about $100,000 or $80,000 a month, always. And your new patient flow jumps 70, 80 new patient a month, always. But look at this, boom, 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 boom. It always happens, boom, boom. It's like a new song, boom. I mean, this guy, and we're not hiding their names, right? We just didn't want to take the time to, you can go see these guys. Some of these guys are here. But if you don't, I don't know why Mark wanted his name in there. But if you don't, if you don't add hygiene, but in fact decrease hygiene, the left column is where people reduced hygiene, and therefore the second column is their production decreased, and usually this is not constant, but the new patient flow at best is stagnant, but usually starts to decline. Boom, 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 boom. Remember you got drums? Boom, boom, boom. Always happens, predictable. All right, let's talk about incentives. What volume is Chris adds a patient if potential new patients are subtly blocked from entering? What value is Chris adds new marketing patient if they leave your practice right away? Without liberal incentives, staff, hygienists, and even doctors will usually quietly subvert your growth effort. Sorry about that. Not you in here in this room, of course, but we see it everywhere in the world, always. We can't go everywhere in the world right now, but commonly I go to 5, 6 countries a year, and I see it everywhere, no matter what. The nastiest one, I think maybe Justin was with me, is we went down to Guatemala City to see the largest practice in Guatemala. We built it up real good, and we're real thrilled with it. And we were looking on this big screen, and we could see all the combined practices. This is 11 practices in Guatemala City. And we could see them all combined, the composite of all the appointments. And we could see Saturdays were completely full, evenings were completely full, blah, 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 blah. But Sundays were oddly empty. And Justin was with me, and he knows his Sundays are his busiest days, and had like that point like 5 or 6 offices. And we're talking with the CEO, who's a really good guy, Danish guy. And we're just, going, well, what the hell's going on here? How could this happen? Well, whatever software they had, they were able to actually work backwards in the schedule, and you could see what was happening to those patients a day before, the day before that, a day before that, the day before that. You could see how those nice little ladies that are this tall with little hats and little flutes and stuff, those nice little ladies who I trusted were taking the damn patients out of Sundays so they could go home or go to church or whatever it is. But I don't care, but they were taking them out. You could see them taking them out, put them on the Saturdays and put them on the Mondays because they didn't want to come in. It's just, just blatant. The most common time for pre-appointed time in hygiene is 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday. We went through 700 offices and found that. When no way in the world 80% of Americans will make it. But that's when the hygienist wants to work. So watch out for this stuff. Watch out for this stuff. Incentivize, incentivize, incentivize. Make sure every morning staff should focus on filling hygiene for that day. But why don't they? Why don't they? How come on in many offices, maybe not yours, but many offices, they'll have a Saturday that sits open, nobody's there. Why aren't they trying to fill it with all the time they have during the rest of the week? Well, they don't want Saturday to fill. They don't want Saturday to fill. If you offer Saturdays, it'll fill, always. It'll always fill. We opened up, Sed and I opened up a practice a few weeks ago in Honolulu, and from nothing, and I had him say, because when I got in there, the first Saturday they had, it wouldn't fill. Now you just don't see Saturdays not fill unless somebody doesn't want it to fill. So I just basically had to ask them to please make sure that every time you answer the phone, you say, thanks for calling Honolulu Dental Care. You know, we offer all sorts of appointments Saturdays, Sundays, and evenings. How may I help you? And then when they ask for an appointment, they say, oh, we have a 5:30 tonight, we have a 6:30 tonight, we have a 7:30 tomorrow morning, and we have a 5 o'clock, we have a 2 o'clock on Saturday, a 3 o'clock on Saturday. And I required them to to offer a Saturday appointment on every call. They did it for a couple of days and they stopped, but you really have to battle almost with staff to make sure they offer the Saturdays, because a lot of people, it's really unpopular with a lot of staff, unless they make a lot more money for going there. Sorry to tell you. So even if 100% of your patients don't all return 6 months later, your Christensen marketing also reactivates thousands of your out-of-recall patients. So I don't know if you understand that or not, but in addition to a recall card, the regular mail marketing, what we do is basically works as a recall card, reactivating existing patients. But it's still the same. If you don't have appointments that are open, it's worthless. It's gotta have appointments open first. But you first must proactively add desirable hygiene in order for it to fill. Can't push a rope uphill. Everybody's got to row the boat in the same direction. Everybody's got to make a lot of money for doing the right thing. If they're not paid to do more money, to do things they don't naturally want to do, like work weekends and Saturdays, it's going to get sabotaged. Always gets sabotaged. Best practice manager is an optimal incentive and compensation system. We had a great practice out in Colorado. He was a really, really nice guy. His wife was originally from Thailand, and so he wanted to move over to Thailand. And he'd set up his practice. Remember this? Who worked with that guy? He set his practice up really well as a Bahamas practice, and he tripled the size of the practice real quick and started moving away from the chair. And then he said, I'm going to move off to Bangkok. Fine. He moved off to Bangkok, but he had no checks and balance systems, and he had no incentive systems in his office. And his staff started screwing with it, and he never knew what was going on. Finally, he got a letter from the state board and pretty much shut him down because something happened there. I don't know what it was, but there was no controls, there was no incentivization. It just went crazy. And it's not good. You got to have incentivization. Also monitors. It causes a great culture. When everybody wins, everybody is rewarded. Between the years before I went to get my graduate degree in marketing, I worked as a cocktail waitress in Lake Tahoe. I was one of the few guys that was ever a cocktail waiter in a casino. That's why I know a lot about casinos. So maybe too much about casinos. If you're nice to people, you make more money. Well, duh. They give you all sorts of money. It's a pretty good deal. I made a lot of money. It was great. But that's how a good compensation system should work. You do the right things, you make more money. So if staff are sitting there doing the same old thing and getting the same amount of money, and they don't want more new patients. I mentioned this to a number of guys yesterday, and stop me if I mentioned it to you guys. But you know, when years ago, when I was starting up Dental One. If you've ever heard of that one, it's a pretty big practice, mostly in Dallas and through this southeast. I think it's owned by the insurance guys now. In fact, I know it's owned by the insurance guys now. My job was to go around to offices and talk with office managers and doctors and sort of get a feel for the practice, see if they thought, or I thought that the practice could be built up and so forth. And so I just go in and just sort of casually talk with the office managers about, you know, what their practice was all about. And they didn't know who I was or nothing, so they were just pretty open and honest with me. And I remember very vividly that one time I went into one office and I said, look, you know, how's the practice doing? I said, oh, it's doing great. You know, oh, really? Well, how many new patients did you get last month? And they said, well, we had about 5. I said, oh, good, that's great. I knew it was shitty, but then she says, but the month before was better. We got 3. So from her perspective, more new patients was bad. And this is a common undercurrent in the mindset of staff, unless they're incentivized to be rewarded for doing more of what makes everybody else more money and causes the patient to be cared for. It's an undercurrent, it's subtle, it's kind of a pipeline that the doctors and the owners know nothing about. A lot of times we'll see these weird weird patterns. Like in London one time, there was this practice where I couldn't figure out why it was we added the third hygienist on a Saturday, and she didn't fill. They filled the other one, but they didn't fill the third one. And I go, well, what's going on? He says, well, the receptionist that did it, she didn't have to work Saturday, so why wouldn't, she had no interest in it. Anyway, algebraically and deductively, there was no other explanation for it. The fact that the hygienists who wanted to be filled were longtime hygienists. They're paid on some sort of commission, and they didn't want to take a chance of having their schedules not full and risk having the third hygienist take away their work. So they basically socially influenced the receptionist without no one understanding or knowing, or no trace of it, socially influenced the receptionist to only fill the existing hygienists first and not fill the new hygienist who's a threat to the hygienist. Does that make sense? Subtle stuff like that goes on all the time. So we're sitting on a gold mine, but it's eventually going to disappear. So I say let's hop on it right now. We've got to add more hygiene appointments. Mark it, we'll fill them. Let's roll as quickly as we can. It's quick. Don't be cheap. Everybody in the office must row everything in the same direction, or you won't get where you're going to go. Everybody's got to be rewarded in proportion to what the practice needs to achieve. Retain patients, more new patients, higher production, blah, 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 blah. You think embezzlement's a big deal, but it's not a big deal relative to the billions that are lost due to staff's subtle and selfish schedule manipulations. There's so much schedule manipulation that goes on with no one realizing it that we find. It's worth billions. So all these guys, oh my God, I got embezzled for $20,000. Well, yeah, but because your staff is screwing with your schedule, you lost $1 million and lost patients. So it's a big deal. I'm talking a big deal. That's Scoot. This is a simple 3-month rolling average incentive system where you have a 3-month rolling average of production. You get $5 for every $1,000 above. Everybody in the office gets it. $5 for everybody in the office, 3-month rolling average above the 3-month rolling average of new patients. Everybody gets $5. $5 per patient above 3-month rolling average of monthly hygiene patients. It's a big deal. I don't think Steve's not here. I think he built his practices up by only incentivizing hygiene. Right, Steve? If he's here? And only incentivizing hygiene because everything flows from hygiene. This is the way some guys keep records of their bonus systems. I say you need to incentivize only primetime hygiene and not incentivize anything other than primetime hygiene, because middle of the day, middle of the week appointments are pretty worthless these days. This is another system whereby, and it's too much for me to explain right now if I'm going to stay on schedule, but it basically you have to only incentivize the 3-month rolling average of primetime patients, and as it exceeds those, you lucratively pay everybody in the office, or at least people who are related to filling up hygiene. The only problem with incentive systems is when team members make too much money, they get lazy and it goes to their heads. And I've had that happen in my own company. Guys make too much money, and they're making so much money it's much more than they ever thought they would make in their lives, and they don't have really the drive to work any harder. And that's one I haven't come to a solution of figuring out yet. It's like sports. You got to know where you stand and you know what to do. It's like baseball. If it's two out in the bottom of the ninth and you got to run around third, you do differently than you would if you had nobody on base. So you got to know where you're at, who's up to bat. And you got to know where to swing, where not to swing. This is Izzy's practice up in Chicago. Everybody in the office knows exactly where they are on a daily basis. Everything's boom, boom, boom. This is Chris Neibauer's. This is before there was computers. He faxed that out to everybody on a daily basis. He went up to 29 offices doing that stuff. This is our own company. We have that on our iPhones. We have it on our walls. Important thing. You're not a failure until you start blaming others for your mistakes. John Wooden wrote that. Smart guy. Real smart guy. Optimizing hygienist hiring management process. Get those hygienists. These types of things work really, really well if you can't otherwise get hygienists. Cost a little bit, but nothing compared to the value of patients that would have been lost if you didn't have a hygienist. You get a hygienist, You're making money. If you don't have hygienists, you're not making money. So if it costs a little bit to get a hygienist, you got to pay it. Got to pay it. Scheduling, this is fun. I think you'll love this. Scheduling to infuse the best patients into your practice. Your goal is to produce $1 million per chair per year. Don't work more hours, work fewer hours, but smarter and more profitable hours. There are 168 hours in a week. Patients have been proven to come in and visit dental offices up to 120 of them. And patients who come in and back other than 9 to 5 Monday through Friday are your best patients by far. This is the basics of a scheduling system, which the blue is all hygiene, all chairs in the evenings and the mornings. And the orange is the midday, midweek, or is restorative focused. It's not always all hygiene in the evenings and so forth in the blue, but it's almost all hygiene. And the orange is not all restorative, but it's mostly restorative. And this is the basic building blocks of a good schedule. There's a lot of different ways you can build this up. Come on, let's go. You want to have the doctors, as Christy was mentioning brilliantly, you want to have the doctors turbo check hygiene undistracted while in the exam groove. And she said very brilliantly, you want to have the doctors do restorative undistracted and in the restorative mode during the middle of the day, middle of the week. They don't get dinged all the time for hygiene checks. A lot more efficient, makes a lot of sense. Keep them in the exam groove, then put them in the restorative groove. But to go back and forth is really dangerous. Not good. Not good for their backs, not good for their careers. I've had guys tell me that they think it's malpractice to go back and forth checking because your eyes don't focus and you miss a lot of work. I've had guys tell me they look at the radiographs the next day and say they missed a lot of stuff because their eyes didn't focus right. Because they're going back and forth between hygiene checks and doing restorative and back and forth and so forth. But remember the hygiene check must be checked by every doctor every time during every visit. This is not a popular thing for me to say, but it's mathematically sustainable that same-day dentistry is a losing proposition if it interferes with checking prime-time hygiene. The math here is that they won't take off work for hygiene, but they will take off work for the restorative care that's found in hygiene. So to sacrifice hygiene, which led to the restorative in the first place, doesn't make any sense because it causes you to have less restorative in the end. I hope that makes some sense. This is what happens if you go back and forth. You go crazy. Your eyes bulge out. You bleed. It's not good. No, but anecdotally, I've been told many people think that it causes back problems. Just to stay in one groove, stick in one groove, do the exams during the exam time, do the restorative during the restorative time. Don't go back and forth. A lot of guys have told me they think it adds years to their career. Let's go through this quicker. This is just another way of looking at the same thing. Rotten apples don't sell. Only add the primetime hygiene appointments the wealthiest patients will only take. They're not going to buy spoiled milk. They're not going to buy rotten apples. Just like a grocery store. You only sell as many cans of soup as you got on the shelf. That doesn't mean there wasn't demand for 3 times that much. You will only sell as many that are on the shelf. If there's no cans of soup on the shelf, no amount of marketing you do can sell those cans of soup. So you got to make sure you got the cans of soup on the shelf, and you got to make sure it's the cans of soup the marketplace wants. This is a great, great schedule. This is a just a pedo schedule in Florida. This guy was supposed to come here today. I really missed seeing him. But I think he's like 1,200, 1,300 hygiene appointments, 1,400 hygiene appointments a month. That's his Saturday schedule. All chairs, all hygiene, new patients, returning patients, always fills. Evenings are the same thing. He will not do restorative work ever during prime time. He tells them the only time we do prime time for your child is between the hours of 9 to 12, Monday through Thursday. And that's it. And if they don't like it, he says, well, I can give you the name of another pedodontist or a pediatric dentist down the road, and you can go to them if you want, because he's just not going to do it. You don't want to sacrifice this inflow. I think this guy does, in this one office, does like $400,000 a month in the one office. It's pretty good. It's really pretty good. This is just a fairly typical, I think, a Saturday schedule where they have a little bit of restorative and a lot of hygiene. This is a fairly common occurrence. They usually have maybe 1 column or 2 columns of hygiene, sometimes no columns of hygiene. This is a Canadian practice where this is a 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock schedule where there's 1 call of a restorative. And 1 doctor checks those 9 to 10 patients an hour. The doctor has an assistant who preps the doctor as he's walking in. They got a walkie-talkie going back and forth. This is Mrs. Jones. Her dog's name's Fifi. You know, she's got something on number 3. The hygienist already told her she needs to get it taken care of. Hi, how are you, Mrs. Jones? How's Fifi doing? I see this one little problem there. Boom, next one. Just like that, 10 an hour. 10 an hour, boom. That one section of that practice did, I think, $3.5 million with 1 doctor on 3 days. It's all the same formula. This is, I think, a good Saturday schedule somewhere. I don't know who did it. Another Saturday schedule. 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 I think that's a weekday schedule. That's a Wednesday, where you see heavy hygiene at the end of the day. And I'm not sure if that's restorative or not. This is a great Saturday schedule. Another that's Justin's, I think, in one of his offices, a Saturday schedule. Got restorative off to the right, I think. Weekday schedule where it's all hygiene towards the end of the day. Saturday schedule. That's, I think, a Saturday schedule with a little bit of restorative to the left, but the rest of it's just hygiene. See, these things always fill. They always fill. Another Saturday schedule, another Saturday schedule, another Saturday schedule, another Saturday schedule. It always happens. Saturday schedule, another one, another one. It is, there's super expert hygienists who, for instance, Doris Valenia, who's one of our favorite hygienists. She was the head hygienist for Todd Bickling and Kristen Ibauer's practice that went up to 30 offices. And she managed, God knows, I think 85 hygienists or whatever, maybe it's 100 hygienists or whatever it was. But she became an expert at teaching hygienists how to see 7 patients in an hour, whereby they would schedule, let's say, 3 pedos with 1 assistant, 2 clean recalls, 1 or 2 new patients, and they basically just, you just basically set it up for the amount of time that's likely to be needed for those patients and see as many as you possibly can, knowing that you're teeing up for the doctor more exams. You want to have as many exams as you possibly can. Our friend John Uehara in Maui, he was kind of a pioneer in the thinking of sort of saying, well, wait a minute, let's give every one of these hygiene patients a different code. We'll call this clean recall a code 1. We'll call the dirty recall a code 2. We'll call the new patient a code 3. We'll call the pedo recall a code 4. So they would give these patients a different time allocation relative to the likely time that would be needed, so that it wouldn't be an hour appointment for all of them, which is stupid to have a pedo patient get an hour appointment. It's crazy, particularly when you have an assistant do it. That one doctor there I just showed you, I think they did 4 pedo appointments in an hour with assistants in that case. So it's however creative you want to be. I can tell you one thing, you're far more likely to get the hygienist to enjoyably check more patients per hour and thus tee up more exams for the doctor, the more that they're paid by the patient and make more money for doing this. We've had carpal tunnel syndrome disappear magically by paying them by the patient. Healed! I can see 3 patients an hour now. Whoa, I make $150. I'm healed! We felt really good about that. We're going to have a TV show on Sunday mornings now with that one. But no, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. Not to be too rude. Well, what the hell, I'll be rude. Hygiene on Saturday, hygiene on Saturday, hygiene. And pay him a little bit more money to fill it. That was a hygiene coordinator who gave her. And fortunately, in that particular practice, I had to give her the money because I was disgusted they had an empty Saturday. I knew they were blocking. I said, look, you fill up the Saturday, I'll give you whatever that is, $300 or $50 or something. I was pissed. I couldn't believe it. I can't believe it. Anyway, this is my favorite practice. This is Judy Devereaux's practice, who's back there. I'm so proud of these guys. They've played around with this quite a bit, but this is the general principle. And Judy, if I say something that's a little off here, always just throw something at me. But it's pretty much what your husband told me that he was doing about 8 years ago. I know he's changed it quite a bit, but the bottom line is he's doing about $1 million per chair per year, and staff love the place. It's a very enjoyable place to go. It's just not perfectly this, but it's mostly hygiene in the evenings and the weekends. So of course, there's a couple columns. It was an 8-chair practice, now it's a 10-chair practice. If I have my way soon, it'll be a 12-chair practice. Judy's here. Judy, you here? Yeah, 12-chair practice, I think, very soon. And you know, basically all they do is they just check. I looked at it the other day, and I think you're like 1,600 hygiene appointments a month now, something like that. You know, and out of that, you get whatever it is, 900,000 a month. And it's the fantastic place to work. People love it there. People love to work with Judy and her husband, Declan. It was voted the best place to work in Honolulu, if my memory is correct. And people love it. It's a great place to be. They work shifts that they want to work. It's 3-day shifts. You can take all 3 shifts if you want. You take no shifts if you want. It's all based on like seniority. I believe it came from Declan's sister, who was involved was a nurse or something like that. So it's a hospital model, but it's also an airlines model. It's also a restaurant model, where if you're a seniority, you pick the hours you want, and you work when you want. Now, I don't think he does exactly this anymore, where they take off during the middle of the day, middle of the week anymore. Maybe they do a little bit of it, but the idea is pretty good. Very, very good schedule. This is another basic $1 million a year per chair per year formula, where you basically start out where you have one doctor who comes in one day, starts early, 6:30 or 7 or something like that, Monday and Tuesday, stops at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Then the next 2 days, they start at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to work till like maybe 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. All hygiene, all chairs, after work, all hygiene, all chairs before work, restorative, middle of the day, middle of the week. The models where we've experimented with this, and we experimented with this in a lot of practices. We built the biggest practice in this town real quick using this model, real quick. $1 million a year to $1 million a month in about 2 or 3 years. Scott Brown's practice, who also unfortunately passed away just recently, which I had to speak at his funeral too, which is not very fun for me. And this was Chris Neibauer's office, which went to about 70 million or so, pretty quick. Just go like that. Once you fill up the first doctor, you add the second doctor, boom, reciprocal shift, boom. Now, back then when we did this, we didn't know people would come in as early as 6:30 in the morning or stay as late as 9 o'clock or 9:30 on Saturdays and Sunday. Nate, how late do your guys come in on Saturdays, if Nate's here? Nate's not here. I think he had him till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock on Saturdays. He opened up Christmas. He opened up Easter. He didn't care. He opened up New Year's. I think he said Christmas is his best day of the year. He didn't care. But the model's really, really viable. It's $1 million per chair per year. Pretty predictable. You repeat with more chairs, another office. This is Zollinger's model. It's a good model up in Minneapolis. I think he's got a hygiene coordinator who also sees hygiene, but 2 assistant hygienists. I think sometimes their hygienists see 3 patients an hour. I think he's seeing 350 hygiene patients a month or something in that neighborhood. And I might be off on this a little bit, but they work 3 days a week, and I think the second week they work later, so they get a lot of time off. Like in Declan's office, I think you could take an early shift the first week, a late shift the second week, so you get a lot of time off. Time with your family. So doctor don't care that much about working long hours. If you get 4 days off, who cares? Same thing here. Work 3 days on, 4 days off. Who cares? And this guy's the same age as me. He's been doing it for 40 years, like I've been doing what I do. And I had breakfast with him the other day. He's about as happy as he can be. I said, "You feeling okay, Paul?" He said, "Yeah, I feel fine." The only problem with him, he's not particularly good at getting associates. We'll hopefully be fixing that pretty quick. This is, oh God, I can't remember this guy's, Offerdahl. Yeah, Offerdahl up in Denver. He just used to go to meetings and brag that he was making all this money. I think said he's making, I think he makes $1.5 million a year, and he was telling everybody he makes this money. And hardly ever work, but he just works in the evenings. Associate works in the evenings and Saturdays. That's all they do. Blue is hygiene, orange is restorative. Let's talk about insurance. You either join either join PPOs or look like you do. So, I mean, I don't know. I have to put my thinking cap on as to whether if you started a new practice, you should join the PPOs or not. It's for sure that if the insurance company sends a check to the patient and no one else in the company gets a check sent to the patient for preventative, it's a red flag and it screws you up. So if you did not join the PPOs as you started a practice, you'd have to not bill insurance for preventative and not collect any money from the patient for preventative. That's for sure. But when I've experimented with this, it's offset by restorative fees that are pretty darn good. So it doesn't really matter whether you get that money or not. We can all learn from the largest companies in the world. They lower prices on things that are repetitively purchased and are understood by the marketplace. The marketplace understands what a cleaning is. They're real aware of what a cleaning is. They know exactly what a cleaning is because it happens maybe 20 times over a 10-year period, whereas a crown might happen once. So they don't know how to compare things with a crown, but they know how to compare things on a cleaning. So you've got to be really careful with what you charge for a cleaning. Walmart and these other guys will raise prices like crazy on stuff that the marketplace doesn't buy on a regular basis, as opposed to milk, cheese, eggs, Coca-Cola, toothpaste, stuff like that. But they'll raise stuff on stuff that garden hoses, things like that people don't buy on a regular basis. They can't tell they're getting ripped off. So be real careful with the cleaning prices and what people pay for cleanings. Going back to if you being in network or not in network, if you already are in network, it's pretty tough to get out because the minute you get out, they're sending letters, you go on a list, somebody pings the insurance computers to see what your benefits are. They call up the patients in the chair sometimes and say you're getting ripped off, you're going to the wrong office, you need to go to Dr. Schmuck over there. It's a pretty tough deal, but the question is whether or not to join a PPO or not when you first start up. And I have to look into it more to tell you. Certainly, if you do that, you don't charge anything for the cleanings, exams, x-rays to the insurance company or to the patient. Insurance guys people with insurance are your best patients. There's no question about that. They spend more money because they essentially get a discount or don't pay anything for the services. So why wouldn't they come to the dentist? Remember, careful with the cleanings though, because the price is just like the milk. It's a $2 milk and then a $3 milk. They're going to buy the $2 milk always. And if your copays for a cleanings, exam, x-rays is high or is other than zero, they're not going to go to you. In network or not, no new or returning patient should pay 1 penny for any cleaning at any visit at any time, because that's the barometer by which they decide whether or not their insurance works well or that you're making the most out of their insurance. If you lose one patient because of insurance, you commonly lose entire families, you commonly lose entire companies, because all families and all company members have the same insurance. So you really got to be careful. We don't talk about that. Are these guys breaking the laws? I mean, we have a full document, if everybody ever wants it, all the legal research associated with the legalities associated with not charging copays. We can send it to you if you ever want it. It's all what the lawyers have told us and so forth over many years. But the bottom line is we've done it for almost 20 years now, and done judiciously and cautiously. We've not had anybody have any problem with it. I want to show you some new marketing, some of the new marketing we've been doing. Everything's got to work together. Everything's got to work together as a unit. All advertising, all in-office patient perceived touch points must be aligned and optimized. It must be everything that you see in the office must mirror what you see in your advertising. Everything that's promised in your advertising must actually occur in your office or better. Everything is integrated, intertwined, interconnected, and integrated. It's all the same thing. Patient perceived marketing components must be optimally and exactingly consistent. Sloppy cut rate stationary printing can screw you up because they think you just cut rate on everything else you do. If something's inconsistent, let's say on your business card, inconsistent with your practice logo on the building or practice logo on your mailers or whatever, if it's inconsistent, the subtle suggestion to the marketplace is there's inconsistencies in the manner of dental care delivery that they cannot define. But in a marketing sense, you're losing an opportunity to build a brand image in the mind of the patient. Everything's got to be consistent in order to find a place in the head. You want to spend the least amount of money to stimulate the most new and returning patients in your media. You want to have copy that stimulates trust and really rises you above the slop of the rest of the dental marketplace. Some of the research, we do a massive amount of research before we put our signs up, our mailers out, business cards, logos, all that type of stuff, color, font, imagery, shapes. We research like crazy on everything. We've done it for like 40 years now. This is some of the type of high credibility imagery, so high trust, high credibility imagery we're using now. And everything's got to be consistent. That site sign looks like the recall cards, looks like the mailer, looks like everything's got to work together. And in the office, they use the same colors on their scrubs. They have the same logo. That's Sed's office in Honolulu, phenomenal offices in Honolulu. He's got a truck ad there, which I think is fantastic. That's an elevator ad. A lot of those, that's his truck. That's, seeing a lot of places, including Honolulu, you can't put billboards up. And he's got 2, now 3 offices. And, we have this truck driving around, 1 million people probably a month see it. It's a delivery truck that was going to go around anyway. We just took the side of it, put that on there. I don't know if he's going to talk with you guys tomorrow about it. I think grew $3 or $4 million this last year. And people aren't going to say, oh, I saw that truck, therefore I came back for my cleaning, or I saw that truck, therefore I responded to your mailer, or I saw that truck, therefore I went to your website and picked you. But this happens more often, the numbers go up more often because of this type of exposure. This is active marketing that reaches out and grabs people. We have an awful lot of offices where they will give the office manager a small van, you have it wrapped like this, they just drive around like crazy. You give it to the office manager one day, another staff the next day, they go to different areas of town. You get a lot of marketing for almost no cost by wrapping these vehicles like that. That's a direct mail flyer. Very successful, very, very successful. It's got to be local, it's got to be trustworthy. This is Honolulu, the area of Honolulu where his practice is from. This is Nick's practice in Knoxbridge, outside of Atlanta. Great billboard. It's great offices across the street. That's one we opened up in the middle of California about a year ago now, and it's doing about $300,000, $400,000 a month now. Very proud of it. Very hard to get doctors there. Very hard to get doctors. But we just bonused it up, got a whole bunch of doctors. Big banners. This is one with, I can't remember who did this. Bailey knows who this is. Great sign usage. That's, I think that was Todd's place. Yeah, Todd's place that he no longer owns out in Maryland, one of his places. Everything works together as a marketing unit, creates an image in the mind of the public. That's one of Justin's offices in San Antonio. That's let's see, that's Mike's office. I don't know if Mike's here in San Leandro, California. Very successful office. Everything works together as a unit. That's Seeger, who's back there. Fantastic practitioner, a wonderful gentleman as well. Originally from Norway. He's basically got one of the best offices in Dallas, no question. Extraordinarily successful. But part of it is the fact that everything works together as a marketing unit. Everything works as a marketing unit. This is Dr. Toussaint out in Washington, D.C. This is Ken Dale with his in fantastic practice in just north of Louisville. Roughly fivefold growth over the last few years. And now Dr. Dale's out of the chair. That's one of the cars that they're used. I think they drive around Boston. Oh no, that's Jazz, isn't it? It's Jazz, right? That's you guys. You guys have that car still? You should go get another one. Once you get back from Copenhagen. Okay, 2 of them, yeah. Great practice. This is one of Chris's offices out in Waldorf or something like that, Maryland. Did a lot of those. All the offices were the same. This is Dr. Rosenfeld's office out in Long Island. He grew about tenfold over the last 5, 6, 7 years. He sold off, unfortunately, to the insurance guys. But part of the practice. Use active marketing. In that case, you used a bus stop. Bus stops are not stupid. And that's his website there on below. All the website has to look like everything else, has to be absolutely consistent with everything. Your website must look like everything, otherwise things don't work quite as well. This is Dr. Hills down on the Jersey Shore. He's got like 8 practices now, 7 practices. That's his office manager's car. I think it's pretty extraordinary. Huh? Are you guys here? Huh? And this is the young lady from Boston. Really good job. Everything works together as a unit. That's Dr. Whiteley and Dr. Hutchinson out in Colorado. That's just Jim Frommeyer up in Portland. You know, we put those signs up 30 years ago, and just, you know, millions of people see it, you know, over that period of time. Tens of thousands of people see it a day. Really great marketing investment. This is Dr. Johnson, Damon out in Edmond, Oklahoma. We built that building about 15 years ago. We've had that sign up like that. You know, it's an institution in that area. It's just known. Everybody knows him. And all he ever does is just add more hygiene than doctors, and he it's easy to fill. It's easy to fill. There's Dr. Carden, the 2 Cardens, great guys out in Colorado Springs. It's Jim. This is Jim and Chris out up in Billings. Fantastic practice. Everything's consistent. I didn't know they put a billboard up. Billboard's really, really good. Really, really good. The question becomes not creating demand, but processing demand. It really becomes, when you do marketing right, really it's the practice's ability to process the patients really the only thing that's in question. Just the pulsifers, Kamenzuli. We do a lot of the stationary printing ourselves now, and it's really cheap and really good, and it should be consistent with everything else. What was this? Just another great practice, another great practice, another great practice, another great practice. Another great media thing, which sounds kind of stupid to mention, but we had research on it. The kids love these toy boxes. Get toy boxes, have them go through it. Doesn't cost much, just do it. More marketing, more marketing. That's in Anchorage, Alaska. That's the car they use. They had no site sign, so everything had to be even better. It's a little tougher to market a practice that doesn't have a site sign. It's more difficult to grow a scratch office. It's more difficult to grow any practice, but you know, these guys got this ridiculous place on the 5th floor, Colin? What are you guys on? 7th floor? 4th floor? 4th floor? Yeah, but you know, these guys are growing by $1.5 million or some ridiculous amount every year. You know, but you can do it, it's just a little tougher. These guys are in Anchorage. It was not very hard to get them going, but it's always harder if you don't have a site sign. Site sign pre-sells any mailers you do, resells your appointment cards, your recall cards, causes more referral, things like that. That's the door sign. This is the fastest, in the late 90s, early 2000s, this was the fastest growing practice we ever did. We thought 2.2 million in the first year was pretty good. Now we got them going up to 12 million in the first year, but this is a great early sort of stepping stone to where we're going. This is a coming soon sign on a practice when we put them when they're under construction. We tell them to come to the existing office first, until the other office is built. Another office in Connecticut. That's in Toronto. That's somewhere. I don't know, where is it? Who is that? I can't remember who that is. That's up in Maine. That's in LA. That's in LA. It's Chris. All right, let's finish up here. I only got a couple more minutes, and I'm going to get yanked out of here. Basic stuff, but I want to go over it before we end here to make sure you know it. No new or returning patients should never, ever, ever get a busy signal to be put on hold. You've got those TrueLark guys out there. If they were to have gotten a busy signal or an answering machine, and they're calling from a cell phone, that cell phone is intercepted. The phone call is intercepted and texted to the cell phone saying, "Hey, man, you want to make an appointment? You want to make a schedule?" Boom, right there on your phone. You make appointments. Very successful. I'm very encouraged about this huge, ridiculous new breakthrough. The phone must be answered by a real person at least 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, no exceptions. Now, going back to the busy signal or answer machines, we are randomly calling offices, and there are thousands of answering machines and busy signals we encounter every year. It's a lot. So you may not think it's happening because there's no evidence of it happening, but it's happening in an awful lot of practices. So it really pays to pay attention to this. I personally will be looking into that TrueLark thing. Give patients what they want over the phone, especially new patient cleanings. Don't upsell to the exam. Aggressively and fluidly offer multiple immediate primetime appointments. This is a marketing communication that tells them and that everybody else at work they can get into your practice right away for appointments that don't make them take off work or school. It exhibits a sense of accessibility that causes referral and causes increases in new patient flow. Plus, by offering immediate appointments like this, you're reducing the likelihood of cancellation no-shows because the longer they wait to get in the door after they make the call, the more likely it is they're going to cancel the appointment or no-show the appointment. Make sense? So it's really important to reverse engineer your practice to get people in right away and offer them over the phone. The wealthiest people just, you know this, they're not going to take off work for a cleaning anymore. Have nice people in the practice, less is more. Over the phone, eliminate all but essential questions. Spend a moment to welcome and reassure patients as to the value of the practice. You're going to love it here. This is a fantastic office. You know, this is where my kids go. This is where I go. I've been in dentistry for 25 years. These are the best dentists you'll ever have. We're looking forward to seeing you. That patient's behavior and experience in the office will be better than it would have been had you not done that, and the likelihood of them canceling or no-show is reduced. We love that insurance, whatever it is. We love it, works great here. If it happens to be an HMO, which the probability is really low, just switch them over to an IDP, give them the best care they ever had. IDP is an individual dental plan, or get them to go back to their work and switch over to a PPO. What the hell? But don't obstruct 100 calls to eliminate the probability of 1 or 2 patients per 100 having an HMO. It doesn't really matter. Your hygienists are sitting around it anyway. Just give them a cleaning. If they don't pay or they don't switch over, who cares? They would otherwise been playing Facebook, so who gives a crap? So don't bring up money, payment, or insurance questions with new patients. Just get them in. If restorative or hygiene case presentation is too aggressive, they'll never come back. They'll tell friends and family and workers to stay away. Don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today. Abraham Lincoln said that. Well, didn't do him any good in the Ford Theater, but probably did him pretty good elsewhere. We've given you the path to future prosperity. The rest of you is starting early Monday morning. Pray for the best, but prepare for the worst. You got a huge opportunity out there right now. I'm talking huge opportunity. Every day you delay is not good. You got to get on it. It's a better way. If there's a better way, do it today. I'm telling you. It's our new post-COVID world of dentistry with new dangers and opportunities. Is it sunrise or is it sunset? Trust me, man. Right now, it is sunrise. You got to get on the ball and make it happen and make some cool stuff happen. Here's my email address and all the other monkey business. You ever want to get a hold of me, just call me. Don't think you're ever inconveniencing me by texting me questions. Text me questions. I'll get back to you. I don't answer my questions when I'm sleeping. Like that, when I wake up, I'll text you back. If I can't answer the question, I'll put you in touch with somebody who can. Please remember that to talk with Nate. Nate's back there. If you don't know Nate, you should know Nate. He's one of the guys, some of you guys are wanting to get out of the chair, he's a guy who actually got out of the chair, grew to $20 million. He's managing these academies we're having at our company, teaching you step by step how to do it in your office. And he's been doing these things for many years, and many of our largest practices where the doctor has gotten out of the chair did so because they spent time with Nate. So it's important to talk with Nate. I have to go to Santa Barbara tonight. I won't see you guys tomorrow, but I will see you at the social event we're having at the lovely Chandelier Bar.